Welcome back, dear listeners. It's Havlicek Stole the Pod. I'm your host, Alex Goldberg. With me, as always, is Daniel Donbedian and Dr. Justin Quinn. And we have a special guest here today. Cody Taylor is joining us from Rookie Wire to talk about the Boston Celtics, the Orlando Magic, a bunch of other stuff. We're going to get right into it. Let's start out with some intros. Daniel, how you doing today, my guy?
Pretty good. Little tired, but last night's game was a much-needed win for them. But we'll get more into that later.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think many Celtics fans would agree with you there. Dr. Quinn, what's going on in Mexico City?
Oh boy, I'm running all over the place like a chicken with my head cut off, and I'll talk about why later. But don't let Daniel downplay his dedication. He made it to the game after flying from freaking Tokyo. So, man is dedicated to his craft.
It was a long day. It was a very long day.
Things are just fine here in Brooklyn. We are cruising, chilling, hanging out. All is well. No complaints. And with us today is Cody Taylor from Rookie Wire. Cody, how you doing? First off, where are you based?
I'm in Orlando.
There you go.
So I will be at a game on Sunday against the Celtics. Will unfortunately miss tomorrow night's game, but rocking and rolling here in Central Florida. The weather is below 80 for the first time this year.
So jacket weather.
In November. So jackets are dusted off and oven mitts are ready to go.
All right, well, let's get into it, fellas. We got to start, as always, with the news. We have some news. We don't have a ton of news, so we're going to go through it pretty quickly. First off, Josh Minott has been making his presence known in Boston, specifically Roxbury, not just with his play on the court, but also with his work in the community. He's been helping out to do some gym renovations at the Roxbury YMCA. And in general, feels like Josh Minott is making an extra effort to really become part of something with Boston long-term. He's been, in a lot of these interviews talking about how happy he is in Boston and how much he feels like he has a role and he's looking forward to being a part of there. Obviously, he's only on a one-year deal, and if he keeps playing the way he's playing, it might be a little hard to keep him. But for what it's worth, Josh Minott is saying all the right things and appears to be doing all of the right things. Any quick thoughts on Josh Minott's impact on or off court, guys?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, I think his time in Minnesota, I believe he was there for like 2 to 3 seasons. I think he said he barely went outside a lot of the time. Like he wasn't that involved in some of the extracurricular activities, whether it be like being out with teammates or some of the community events. But I think that's changed in Boston, especially because he knows he has like a cemented role this season. Like there's no doubt about it. They literally need him. He's started the last 6 games. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. But I think it helps that he knows he's here for the season at the very least. And like you said, Alex, maybe beyond.
Yeah, that would be nice. Although I do think it's going to be interesting to see what Josh Minott's offers look like next year. Because again, if he keeps playing the way that he's playing,
he's got a team option,
tricky.
Which I was going to bring up. That is actually
a
masterstroke, I think, on Brad's part. Not that anyone, but I guess the staff knew at that point. But in this particular cap environment, players like him being on the roster are going to be critical. So I'm really psyched just to see him settling in, not just on the court, but like as a person into Boston.
Sure. Speaking of settling in, Dr. Justin Quinn has been settled at Mexico City for a while now, but some other folks came to join him in Mexico City somewhat recently. Specifically, former Celtic Javonte Green was in town. Justin, you want to talk us through your chat with Javonte and why he was there and what precipitated this?
He was there with the Detroit Pistons to play the Dallas Mavericks in the 2025 Mexico City game. It was actually a pretty good game. It was close right up to the end. When the Pistons blew it open, unfortunately, Javonte was not part of that, but he was part of the game itself. And I got to catch up with him in the open practice section that they hold before the game itself the day before. We didn't talk too long, just maybe 5 minutes. Didn't didn't have too much to say. He's still close with Jason. They still talk a lot, but oddly enough, considering that like Tatum has the whole like Achilles bros things going on with the other folks like Dame and Tyrese Halliburton who have been going through the same thing. Interestingly, he and Javante do not ever talk about any injuries. I kind of feel like it's more of a Javante thing than a him thing, but it was nice short conversation. Also caught up with Cooper Flagg a couple different times, and he does not seem 18 years old as like the way he carries himself off the court. He's a really, really poised young man. And it's nice to see that his season's starting to come together because it was kind of a rough start to him. Curious where y'all think he is in terms of the rookie of the year race with VJ Edgecombe kind of starting off pretty, let's say it better in terms of his impact on the court. And other than that, it was just, your typical NBA Mexico City game, which if y'all come down, I will have to show you around for.
Quick thoughts on the rookie of the year race, only because it's somewhat relevant. Noticing Derek Queen. I know that the New Orleans Pelicans are not a particularly good team, and that trading the what is potentially going to be a very high lottery pick for the 10th pick in last year's draft to move up and draft Derek Queen, that was met with a lot of controversy. But I have to say, Derek Queen's looking pretty good right now. He's been playing pretty well in New Orleans. So this is about to be, I think, a much more interesting rookie of the year race. Obviously, Dylan Harper was in that as well, but he's going to be out for a little bit with an injury. Cooper Flagg still, I think, squarely in the race. Obviously, the Mavericks are no great shakes right now, but Flagg is starting to find his footing. I think this is going to be a more interesting rookie of the year race than a lot of people thought it was going to be at first glance. Something to monitor as we go through the rest of the season for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The
rookie of the year race, just because, Cooper came in with so much hype and anticipation that he was just the overwhelming favorite to win, right? And all along, I had a feeling that there would be some other guys that would kind of step in as the season went on. And obviously, you mentioned Derek Queen. He's had a good last couple of games. They've been kind of weird with his minutes, Willie Green has, for whatever reason. 2 games ago when he came in and had all 12 of his points in the fourth quarter, he really only played in the fourth quarter, which was just kind of odd. A lot of Pelicans fans are pretty mad about that. And then, I think Con Knipple has kind of put himself in that rookie of the year race to start.
Definitely.
Obviously we'll see how he kind of progresses. He's on pace to make the most threes by a rookie in history. So, but Cooper has been a lot of fun to watch, obviously, and you can kind of see it in spurts. And to Justin's point about his maturity, I mean, he won't be 19 for another month, and he seems more mature than people twice his age sometimes even, and he makes it a point to always sign autographs for kids and fans, like even after losses, like the one the other night. And so he was joking. He's like, I'm not much older than them. I'm only 18 myself. So, but he's been a lot of fun to watch and very impressive so far.
I also want to point out.
All right, go ahead.
Just real quick, in terms of the race, it might cost him the race, but he has been playing a lot of point guard, which he has never played before. For those of you who follow local college sports in New England, just think of like how Liam McNeely looked at UConn when he was asked to pick up the point position, having never done so either. The fact that either of them look like a competent player in any capacity is pretty impressive, considering how much of a load that is if you're not used to it. Jason Kidd had a good explanation for this, and that he wants to prepare him for a higher ceiling future, basically, which I agree with, but it might cost him the rookie of the year race.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to, of course, take into consideration, and we've talked about it a bunch on this pod, but the explosive start from VJ Edgecombe, I think we have to put him as the front runner right now, and with good reason. He's been playing great ball in Philadelphia. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. Definitely something to monitor. Hugo Gonzalez, I think, has been having a nice, perfectly fine season. I do not think he will be a big factor in the rookie of the year race, I'm sorry to say. But who knows? Maybe all rookie second team or something like that if he really works his butt off. speaking of guys who really worked their butt off, unfortunately, we have some not so fun news, which is that Tony Allen was recently arrested, former Celtic in Arkansas, with some drug-related charges. He joins teammates Paul Pierce and Glenn Davis as notable members of the 2008 Celtics championship team who have recently encountered some legal trouble. We are not going to get into the specifics around that because nothing is set in stone. There have been no verdicts or pleas or anything like that, and we will refrain from offering additional commentary outside of that, other than to say it's a bummer, and we hope everything works out. Let's see. In other news, RJ Luis has been cut by the Maine Celtics due to knee surgery.
We think
he's getting surgery,
but we don't know what kind. Yeah.
RJ, of course, was notable for being acquired from the Utah Jazz in the George Niang salary dump. He has not played any minutes with the Boston Celtics, and it does not look like he is going to be playing any minutes with the Boston Celtics. So that's going to be a straight salary dump of George Niang, which, frankly, I don't know that anybody on this podcast is particularly shocked by. We're going to move on to the actual basketball being played news. The Boston Celtics had a not so great week for the most part. They scraped by Philly in their first in-season tournament game, which was an entertaining but crazy game towards the end in particular. Philly made a really impressive run to cut Boston's lead, which they never relinquished. Boston led the whole game, but they managed to cut the lead all the way down to 1. And then due to some free throws and turnovers and all sorts of craziness, Boston managed to eke out a 1-point win. Josh Minot was a big part of that. They then got absolutely trounced by the Houston Rockets. In our last podcast, we previewed that matchup a little bit. It did not end up being a very exciting matchup. Justin and I both mentioned that the rebounding was going to be a problem for Boston in that matchup, and boy, was it. The Rockets absolutely slaughtered them on the boards. Yeah. And then they had followed that up with a pretty disappointing loss to the Utah Jazz. They lost 105 to 103. In this situation, the Celtics' late game execution that was better against the Sixers was a good deal worse against the Jazz, and they paid for it. And then last night, they somewhat redeemed themselves by blowing out the Washington Wizards 136 to 107. They were down for a little bit, and then Jaylen Brown turned on the Jets, and Josh Minot had another excellent game. So 4-game stretch, 2-2, 1 close win, 1 close loss, 1 blowout loss, 1 blowout win. What do we make of this? I'll swing it to you first, Justin.
This is the microcosm of the season. I'm calling it now. This is what it's going to look like. There's going to be lots of each of those 4 types of games. There might be like an occasional really good win, like the Cavs win earlier in the season, for example. But this week really was just a microcosm of the season ahead.
Daniel, additional thoughts?
Yeah, that Philly win was about as ugly as they come. I was watching that. I mean, they were very, very fortunate to escape Philadelphia with a win. But hey, they gave them their first loss, so that has to mean a little. The Jazz game was definitely the most disappointing loss of the season so far. The Rockets game, that has to be the most scheduled loss. Like I'm sure you guys mentioned it. Like I don't know how they could have really competed there. The Rockets are just huge. Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant. They didn't really have an
coming
answer
off
for
a
that.
back-to-back too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then last night I was able to fly in late for the game. It's got to be tough to be a Wizards fan and have your team still get blown out by this version of the Celtics. I mean, it was close in the beginning. I mean, the Wizards are actually up 10, but they just fell apart. The Celtics were able to turn them over way too easily. And Jaylen Brown was literally like on fire, 35 points in 26 minutes. I saw some stat where no other Celtic had done that. That's just crazy.
Cody, thoughts on anything you saw from Boston? I know you probably didn't watch all of the games, but just based on what you saw.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Are y'all still here?
Yeah, we're here.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I mean, as someone who covers rookies, and obviously the Wizards have a ton of them, especially a lottery pick. It's pretty tough to cover them when they're losing every game by about 30 points, which is what happened last night. Trey Johnson, as exciting as he can be aside, it's tough to write about him. So didn't really pay much attention to last night's game, but the Wizards just seem to be a team that, it's a scheduled, Daniel mentioned a scheduled loss. I think the Wizards are that scheduled loss for themselves against a lot of good teams.
Yeah, no, I think to your earlier point, Daniel, the Wizards have had a rough go of it, but I will say there are some guys on the Wizards who are looking a little better. I think Alex Sarr is definitely not the bust that a lot of people thought he was going to be.
No.
There's a little bit of foundation there. We mentioned Trey Johnson, Cody. He's got some stuff. I do think things are not quite as bleak for Washington as they used to be. And hey, if anything, we can look at the relative success of the Charlotte Hornets and Chicago Bulls this season as hope that any franchise can pull themselves at least a little bit out of the darkness. In terms of kind of the Celtics on the floor product, so obviously, we're going to talk about it all year. It's going to be said over and over again, but we do have to mention that the rebounding and the inconsistent shooting are going to be big parts of all of these losses. They just continue to get crushed on the glass, particularly the Houston loss and the Utah loss. Both of those, they really did not do a great job rebounding. The shooting slump continues for Derek White. It is kind of very much in spurts for Peyton Pritchard. I saw a pretty good piece by Danger Cart, regarding Derek White's shooting struggles and how they might be related to the Celtics screening. Might want to take a look at that if you are following Celtics media in various places. Sam Hauser has also struggled shooting. So those are kind of the problems that we've identified: inconsistent shooting, sloppy turnovers, and bad rebounding. I guess I'm curious, did you guys see anything positive in those losses that we can build off of? Obviously, we saw some decent stuff in the Wizards blowout and some resilience in the Philly win, but what from the losses can we take as far as positives?
I mean, besides the Thunder, I keep saying Thunder because of Kevin Durant. Besides the Houston game, they haven't really gone blown out bad. I know the Knicks game, they lost by double digits, but that game was at one point decently close. I mean, I think they had a lead at halftime or something. Either way, they're staying competitive in these games, no matter what the health of the team looks like. So I guess that's one upside. But I mean, it's just going to be a lot tougher for them. Like Justin said, there's no more of these scheduled wins where, they play the Jazz, that's a win. Yeah, they played the Wizards and they dominated, but there's going to be more of those sneaky trap games for this team that are going to pop up and give them more trouble than Celtics fans are probably used to.
I'm going to throw out one positive from these losses, which is that Jaylen Brown is playing some excellent basketball, and it really does have to be said. He's been playing really, really great basically the whole year. He has not had a lot of help in these losses, and that's been a big part of this, is that the teams that are really scheming for Boston know that keying in on Jaylen Brown is the key to beating them all year. But he has been playing some pretty outstanding basketball. It's been encouraging to watch his growth as a playmaker. Obviously, he's always going to be a good scorer, and he's always going to be able to bring a level of physicality to the game that will impact things. But he's looked very patient. He's looked very precise in kind of where he wants to go. He's getting to his spots. He's shooting the leather off the ball right now. It has to be said that Jaylen Brown is playing great. I mean, early returns, we'll see. There's a small sample size still, but you have to think he's going to make the All-Star team if he keeps playing at this rate, at the level that he's playing, and that's definitely.
I would say All NBA could be in the conversation. Yeah. Honestly,
he's definitely going to be in the conversation. All NBA will be potentially tricky and a little record dependent, I think, but the stats will be there. He's been playing great basketball. In terms of what can be tightened up, we'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the pod, but I'm curious, aside from the obvious, the rebounding, the focus, the shooting, the execution with the turnovers, Justin, is there any one thing that kind of jumps out to you?
Focus. They just have to be able to stay focused longer. And I mean, this was the Celtics before they became a more veteran team, right? They had this problem before. I don't really think this is like a Jays problem anymore, but now it's a new generation of players that are having trouble staying engaged for the full 48 minutes. There's big checkout chunks, no matter what Josh Minot wants you to say. That I think is probably, honestly, the biggest hurdle because, let's be honest, Derek White is already starting to look better shooting. Sam Hazard was good until fairly recently. Peyton Pritchard is even getting better with his shooting. That was the other really big issue. And I'm not sure. I mean, you can gang rebound and do better than Boston has been doing, but they're just never going to be able to rebound with the likes of like Houston, for example, or any team with a really big front court. So I think that really it's just consistency that they really need to focus on moving forward.
I think you're probably not wrong about that. I want to see more from some of the kind of guys who are young but have been here for a little bit. With all due respect, Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, guys, if we're going to see it, would love to see it sometime soon because I'm starting to get
Jordan was looking good.
He had a
versus
game
Washington.
last night.
No, he
versus Washington.
Versus Washington. The DNPs and the other stuff I haven't loved. Baylor Shireman has not looked particularly strong to start the season, and I am a little worried about his viability as a long-term NBA player. The last thing in the news that we will mention before we move to the next portion of the pod is that Jaylen Brown hairline gate continues unabated. There is no end in sight. He scrubbed off a little bit on the Washington Wizards. It appears that this is just going to be a storyline that we're going to have to monitor for the entire season. Jaylen, I know he's playing great. I know that the all-star numbers are going to be there. But off-season rehab in Turkey never hurt anybody, my man. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're going to move things along. Cody, we've been yapping about the Celtics, so we figure we got to give you your fair due as the guest. That's right. It is time for the steal, how it works. Cody gets to take over the pod. He gets to talk about whatever he wants. He gets to ask whatever questions he wants. It can be about basketball. It can be a rant about some other thing that is totally unrelated in life. It can be, a question that he has for all of us that we need to be put on the spot for. It's your time, Cody. What do you want to talk about? Steal this thing.
Yes, I'll be happy to. Thank you. I have a little bit of a rant that I would like to address. Go on. When Justin sent me sort of some of the topics last night, the first thing that popped into my head for this segment was the ESPN injury reports and the estimated time to return. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of this, so just a quick catch up is that you can access all of the injuries for every team on ESPN's website. It's under its own category, injuries, and every player currently injured has their status and when they could potentially return. I saw twice this week there was an issue with some of the Spurs players, particularly De'Aaron Fox, who wasn't listed on their injury report, and a lot of people assumed that meant that he was returning to play to debut this season. He has yet to play. That is not the case. He's still injured and still not playing. And for whatever reason, he just wasn't on their injury report. And so that created a lot of confusion just among fans and writers. A couple of the beat writers that I follow have had to go back and forth and kind of explain how injury reports work. And then I went through entering the season, the Magic had two outstanding injuries, Jalen Suggs, who has played quite a bit, and Mo Wagner, who has yet to play with a knee injury. He is listed, his estimated time to return is tomorrow against the Celtics. Not happening. Mo has not practiced. and is not playing. So they were thinking more of maybe they don't even have a timetable. And the point of all of it is I know why teams don't put timetables on injuries, because when a player inevitably isn't ready by the time that timeline comes up, there's instantly questions of, oh, did he have a setback? Is he good? Is he not good? What's going on with Mo Wagner? I'm just using his name as an example. So I understand why ESPN is doing this, has dedicated more resources to this injury report page with the influx of betting and all of these certain things. We all want to know who's playing, who's not playing. I get it, but there's a way to figure this out, to do a better job of doing this, and to put better information out there. And as someone who covers a lot of basketball, we all do, can probably appreciate ESPN kind of figuring this out and, just creating a more simplistic system for this particular issue. And so I yield my time now.
Fair enough. We appreciate it. We're always down for a good rant, sports related or otherwise. So thank you for that. And ESPN got to get it together in a number of respects. IMO, just injury report is one thing, but I have some other gripes with ESPN and how they've handled a lot of things these past couple of years. Anyway, that if we wanted to rant about that would be taking up far too long of your listeners' time. And we appreciate our listeners, and we're long-winded as it is. So let's move in to part 2 of the pod. We're going to dig into a little bit more the Boston Celtics, the Orlando Magic. They're going to be playing each other tomorrow on the next NBA Cup game, and we're going to get right into that. So, Cody, that's why we brought you here. First off, let's just. I know the rundown has us talking Boston first, and I do want to talk about Boston, but I do want to get just your quick top-down, 500-foot view. What's going on with the Orlando Magic broadly this year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the defense hasn't been there. And under Jamal Mosley, Magic have been a team that have consistently ranked in the top 5. Last year, they were ranked second. They fluctuated throughout the year, throughout the first 2 weeks of the season. I believe they're about 14th right now, a lot lower than what they are accustomed to. And when you're watching this team, they're just not. They're giving up more points in the paint. They're not forcing as many turnovers. They're not getting them out in transition. And certain things like that have just kind of plagued the team. And they're just a team that last year they were ranked last in pace. This year, a goal of theirs was to play faster, and they're 6th in pace. But a lot of what they did last year and why they succeeded was getting out in transition and scoring off turnovers, just something they haven't been able to do quite yet this season. Granted, it's been 2 weeks and there's still a lot of things going on. There's a couple of new guys playing big minutes, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, but just the defense hasn't been there. And then, of course, the additions of Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones, they just haven't quite given their production that people are accustomed to seeing from them. And just you kind of put all of that together so far, and you see where the Magic are.
I know the NBA is a copycat league, but have you or anybody spoken to the coach about that maybe this team isn't built to play fast?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a topic of conversation, certainly, just because Coach Mosley was asked today just about is it the pieces, the new pieces, Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones? Is it just a matter of just them adjusting to the new system? And he responded to Jason Beatty, Orlando Sentinel Magic beat writer, of, he asked him, like, when you submit a story, how many drafts do you have? And he said, was it like 4 or 5? And he was like, yeah, sure. He's like, we are on our 4th or 5th rough draft, 8, he said, after 8 games. We're on our 8th rough draft of trying to figure this out and trying to change different things. Today was in practice was defensive minded. They focused squarely on defense. just to kind of recalibrate after a 5-game road trip. Didn't have a lot of practice time. So to come back and kind of put those things together. But, you know, to your question, they have been trying to just kind of figure this out and figure out if that's how they want to play. Like I mentioned, their last year in pace, they're 6th this year, entering Thursday night's game and Thursday night games. And so they're just trying to figure all that out at the moment and see if it's kind of where they want to be.
It's weird that we have this dynamic because Boston has the same kind of a thing going on with 3-pointers. And this is not a team that's made for that. So there's some very interesting parallels and not good ones, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and to jump into the data a little bit, Boston's 3-point shooting slump has been pretty significant. Now, obviously, we got to start with, the elephant in the room. They lost a lot of really good talent with regard to their 3-point shooting. Al Horford is not on the team. Jason Tatum is injured. Kristaps Porzingis is not on the team. Drew Holiday struggled in the playoffs, but as far as his 3-point shooting percentage was concerned last year and the year before, pretty darn good, particularly from the corners. This year, the numbers are worse. So Baylor Shireman, for all his struggles, leads the team with 55.6% 3-point shooting on a very small sample size, for what it's worth. Sam Hauser is the player who is probably getting the most actual rotation burn. He's stabilized at 40%. Jordan Walsh is also at 40%, but again, has barely played. Jaylen Brown is pretty rock solid at 38%, which is pretty in line with a lot of his kind of recent career averages in the last few years from 3. Anthony Simons, 37.5. These are all the fairly decent shooters on the team. So we basically have Brown, Hauser, and Simons as the 3 consistent rotation players that are getting regular burn and that are also shooting decently from 3, along with occasional Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh on a tiny sample size. But Derek White is shooting 26.5%. Peyton Pritchard currently shooting an abysmal 21.3%, far cry from his near 40% shooting last year when he won 6th Man of the Year. Chris Boucher, 10% from 3. Hard not to see why he's not getting a lot of burn with Joe Mazzulla. If he shoots 10% from 3, he's just not going to play that much for this team. So 2 of their more important rotation players shooting below 30% from deep. Chris Boucher, 10%. That's pretty bad. And then many of their other rotation players simply don't shoot 3s at all. Nemesh Keita, Xavier Tillman will take a couple of bad 3s every now and then, but they're not going in. Luka Garza, Josh Minot, these guys are not 3-point shooters. Hugo Gonzalez remains to be seen.
But yeah,
he'll hit them if they're open, but he's not a high volume, high consistency 3-point shooter. The space is much tighter for Boston this year. That is a big part of the story. So I mentioned there's a big drop in skill and experience. Obviously, they've lost a lot of key veteran players, and their best player and their best shooter is also, out for an extended period of time, presumably. So how much of this do we think is just like a big talent drain versus, we also have situations where, guys who've been pretty consistent, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, are on the team and just not shooting well. Cody, from an outsider perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mentioned to you guys, I haven't watched a ton of the Celtics yet this season, but it's kind of interesting to hear the struggles that some of these guys have had just because of what we're accustomed to seeing from them. And maybe that's a situation of like something with, Tatum not being available, maybe that a lot of the guys maybe feel like they have to pick up some slack and maybe they're not ready for it to, like, I'm not saying like all of the players, but we've seen a lot of these guys play those second, third roles very well. And just maybe due to circumstances this year, it's just a one-off. That's kind of where I see some of this just from, from the outsiders for sure.
Let me just weigh in real quick too. The structure of the team is not made to shoot 3-pointers. If this was a team that was designed to go deep into the postseason, which it is not. We have to keep in mind that this team is building for the future. And so the question of whether they should shoot more three-pointers or not, and I'm not sure if this is going to apply to the Magic in the same kind of a way with how they play faster now, but at least for the Celtics, they're going to be looking for who can take on a bigger role for next season, not this season, right? So this is kind of the thing that I was alluding to earlier in the pod when I said there's a lot of bad nights and I don't want to watch them. But just because I don't want to watch them doesn't mean they don't need to happen. And I think we're going to all collectively struggle in the Celtics sphere here to kind of square the circle of this is bad to watch, but good for the future.
Yeah, and I will say,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I will say last night, I think they shot 39% from three, which was, I believe, their best night of the season, maybe. I think before that, they were dead last or second to last in three-point percentage in the whole league. But they're getting some good shots. Like, you see the Jazz game, they had a lot of open threes, and they're just not falling. And it's for guys like Peyton Pritchard and Derek White, who we're used to just seeing them all go in. Maybe it's kind of the added pressure we were alluding to of like, oh, well, if I miss this, whatever, we can get back, and then Tatum can do something and we'll score. Now it's like, oh, well, if we miss, like the Celtics need us to make it. I don't know if that plays any role in it. I think Derek White and Peyton Pritchard will be okay. They'll snap out of it. Pritchard already did a little yesterday. Derek is still struggling on offense. His defense has been good, but he's still having those three-point problems. But I think they're getting some solid shots. They're just not falling. But it is part of the talent too, because like Alex alluded to, Xavier Tillman's just not a guy you really want shooting threes reliably. And he hasn't played a ton, and he actually won't play tomorrow because of personal reasons, I think. But it is part of the talent because Drew, Kristaps, those are just guys you want shooting more threes, rather than Baylor, who's kind of taken a step off, Boucher, who's clearly struggling. So I think it's a mix of easy shots just not going in, but also like some lesser talent too.
Yeah, I do also just want to bring back really quickly the screening point, which I think is slept on, but very important. Luke Cornett and Jason Tatum and Al Horford last year were some of the best on-ball screeners, not just, on the Celtics, but really in the entire NBA, particularly with Luke Cornett. The amount of separation that guys were able to get off of Luke Cornett screens was like a quietly huge part of this Boston offense. The fact that all of those guys had gravity as rollers, and in the case of Horford and Tatum, could also space out and be their own three-point shooting threat. Not so much Cornett, but his gravity as a roller was so significant. Defenses had to account for that. They couldn't go over on screens. They couldn't, just not respect the roll at all. Now, Neemias Queta is still getting, lanes to the rim. Josh Minot is still doing stuff around the rim. It's not like those guys are, they have no gravity as rollers, but the screen and roll game just isn't quite as dynamic. That Queta's rolling to the basket. Minot is rolling to the basket. Those guys aren't popping out for three. And so it changes the geography of the defense and how they navigate those screens. And it also cuts off a lot of breathing room for a true motion offense concept like the Boston offense has been running the past few years. So I do think it can't be understated that a huge part of this is just personnel based. They just don't have the same guys who can do the level of dynamic spacing and screen and roll game that they had last year. And until they have those guys on the roster, or until Josh Minot suddenly learns how to shoot threes at a high clip, I think it's gonna be a lot of this. And they'll be hot, they'll be cold, they'll work their way through it. But the spacing is just not what it was from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, rebounding has been an issue for Boston as well, despite the fact that, with Minot now in the starting lineup, along with Neemias Queta, they are playing bigger. There is more size in the front court. So what can we diagnose this rebounding problem? Because we've talked about it now basically every episode of the season.
Yeah, I can. They're short and
Sure.
they lose their focus. So when you put those two things together, you are not getting a lot of rebounds.
I do think one thing also that is worth kind of teeing off of that point is that it's not that they're necessarily short in the front court. It's that they're much shorter in the back court. A big part of last year's rebounding success has to be said. Drew Holiday and Derek White together were two excellent rebounding guards. Now it's Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. That's much more difficult.
And he's got other stuff to do now too. So it's like he can't do all the same thing. He has been, to his credit, during the shooting slump, but it's clear like he's sacrificing some here to focus on there, and he needs some help, and it's not coming.
Also has to be said, Jason Tatum led the team in rebounds last year, and he is on the sidelines. That's fairly important. Joe Mazzulla has continued with his hockey sub plan, where he's basically the starters have for the most part stabilized. It seems like we now have our set starting lineup. It's going to be White, Pritchard, Brown, Josh Minot, and Dinesh Keita, probably. Maybe we'll switch up on a matchup basis, but for the most part, that seems like it's going to be the lineup. But Mazzulla is continuing to do full line changes, hockey sub style, just getting bodies on the floor. How are we feeling about that, Daniel? I'm curious.
I mean, with this roster, I don't mind it. Like last year, I don't think that really would have made sense. But like we're saying about the talent, they need more bodies. They just need a lot of guys coming in and out. And they're going to need a lot of different guys to contribute. So to do that, they're going to need to have those quick subs. And especially with the foul trouble, I think that's a big part of it. Like I think Pritchard got two like instantly last game. When stuff like that happens, because they're trying to be uber aggressive on defense, they're going to need to have like new bodies coming in pretty quickly. So I think with that kind of play style, it makes sense. Because last year they didn't have to do that. I mean, they just had great defense all around because they had better size. I mean, they have Drew Holiday. They didn't have to try and foul and be extra aggressive. And to be fair, it worked yesterday. Like, the aggressiveness totally threw the Wizards for a loop. And I mean, the Wizards aren't good. We know that. But still, it had some success. But I think this season, the hockey sub method makes more sense, at least for now. We'll see how the season progresses.
Let me just add in too that for me, at least, it was never really the hockey sub. For what Daniel just pointed out, like the energy level of trying to be almost collegiate with like full court pressing. Not full 3/4 court, let's be honest, which isn't really happening as much as they said that they wanted to do to begin with, but that's a whole other story. The quick hook, I think, was the biggest problem for me early in the season because no one ever got a rhythm. And then versus Washington, Joe left Josh Minot in with that 2 quick fouls early in the game. And that really reassured me that it's like he's not going to do this all season, because if he did, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked a decent amount about the Celtics, and we have Cody here. And I apologize, Cody, because we've been doing Celtics this whole time. But you're a Magic guy, and we want to cover the Magic, and we want to see what's going on with this team. So, we kind of got the top-down view. I'm curious because I had really high expectations for the Magic this year. I thought that they were going to be, I think I had them pegged as a 3 seed in my preseason predictions. And I thought that they were going to be a very strong team. So far, that has not been the case. They're right behind Boston as the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. So in your eyes, what has been kind of the thing that has held this team back the most from what I think myself and a few of us assumed it could be?
Yeah, and honestly, like I it's the defense, like 100%. We know the offense has been, toward the second, third, like toward the bottom of the league the last few years, and the Magic have still been, a good team, a really great team at times. And so obviously the team addressed the offense, bringing in Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones, and then those additions haven't quite panned out. I don't think the way a lot of people thought they would. It's a couple weeks in, but to your point, Alex, like I think worst case, a lot of people thought they could be the 4th seed and potentially even go third seed. And so it's just a lot of the defense that has made them get easy points, get hold teams to fewer than 100, 110 points. I think they've already given up over 125 points, more than or 130 points already once this year. They didn't do that once last year. And that happened against the Sixers last week. There's just a lot of things that aren't clicking yet that I think a lot of people thought would be able to kind of snap in right from the jump. So there's just a lot of things going on. And, at some point, I think a lot of coaches will say, and people you talk to, like a quarter of the season through, you start to really figure out, all right, the Magic are going to be this, the Celtics are going to be this after about 20 games. Obviously, there's still time before that, but there's a lot of change that needs to happen before the Magic can kind of, get to where a lot of people thought.
I heard on a fairly big podcast, I will not throw under the bus because there's some nice people on it. But the idea that they had, that the problem with the Magic was that they don't have a shooting big man. That it didn't, when they went and got Bane, they did not go as far in as the Celtics, for example, and do like their version of a Kristaps Porzingis. What are your thoughts on that? And why is it wrong in the defense being screwed up by playing too fast?
Yeah, I think that, Wendell Carter Jr. is the starting center. And if you look at his stats, it says he's shooting 50% from 3-point range on 2.5 attempts a game, which I think is very deceiving because, a lot of Magic fans have been very annoyed by the 3-pointers that he takes and misses more often than not. And so, the way the Magic are structured with Wendell and Paolo and Franz, like 3-point shooting hasn't been necessarily their bread and butter. Obviously, they found ways to play, to score without shooting threes. Obviously, it does help when you can space the floor. Wendell, he is out on the 3-point line a lot of the time. And so I think that's why they went out and got these great shooting guards in Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones. And this just hasn't worked yet. But I think that with that being said, Wendell is having a really solid start to the year. He's been the rebounding. Yeah, I mean, Franz is shooting. I think it's close to 40%, which is, well higher than last year. And so I think that Paolo's shooting numbers have dipped, but he's doing so much more. Getting to the free throw line, the Magic have the most makes, are taking the most free throws in the league, probably not shooting as well as they want. But there are things that they're doing well that they have done in the past. It's just the shooting again, hasn't been there, and the defense has slipped.
Obviously, the Bane trade was kind of the signature move for Orlando. They gave up a huge amount of draft capital as well as the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope contract. What's the kind of pulse check on the Bane trade a couple games into the season here?
Yeah, I think when it happened, it kind of, a lot of people were surprised by it because under Jeff Weltman, the team has been pretty conservative in a lot of the moves that they make. They've built through the guys that they've drafted. They've held on to guys probably too much longer than they needed to. And so I think at first glance, a lot of people were taken aback by it. But I think a lot of local fans, I think some of the media here, people that follow the team understood it was certainly a move that had to be made. And I think a lot of the maybe criticism of that trade came from the outside, the national media and so on and so forth. But I think when you look at the year that KCP had last year, he was kind of brought in to be that guy that the Magic, that they want with Desmond Bane this year, a 3-and-D guy. And the defense was there, certainly. KCP did not shoot the ball very well. I don't remember what he shot off the top of my head. I think a lot of fans were a little upset to see Cole Anthony go, but probably a guy that knew he would be traded at some point because of what he made and to throw in and the position that he plays. So I think that, when you make a move like that and leverage so much of your future draft capital and you start off the way the Magic have started off, that's going to be called into question again. But I think a lot of people are just still kind of being patient. But there is a section of Magic fans that I see on the social medias that are growing weary and growing upset with how they started.
So last year, obviously, the Celtics and the Magic played in the playoffs in what was, ultimately it was a 5-game series, but it was a pretty tough and physical and competitive one. In general, these two teams have, kind of gone tooth and nail at each other for a little bit now. And at least for me, just as a watcher, the big thing that jumped out to me in that series was Paolo Banchero taking steps forward, both as a playmaker, as a scorer, and particularly as a menace defensively. He really kind of jumped off the page in that series about that. And yet this year, the Magic's defense has been, as you've mentioned a couple of times, pretty below expectations. Paolo, I think most people would agree that Paolo is at this point the Magic's best player. He is their main guy. What have you seen from him this year as far as, his progression as a player and also his impact on the defensive end? Is he helping to kind of right the ship, or is he part of the problem here?
No, I think Paolo is a guy that you can count on to be, and when you look at the Magic as the defensive, juggernaut that they've been, at least last season, ranking second, there's not necessarily one great defender. There are guys that are certainly versatile, can guard multiple positions, have but there's not one guy. And so I think when the Magic have fared well on defense, it's all a team effort. It's everyone playing team defense, knowing where you should be here and that, on every play and position on the court, whoever you're guarding. And I think Paolo is a good piece that fits into what the Magic want to do on defense as a guy. He's 6'10", 250, good length. He can move. He can switch and in a pinch when needed. But I think he's certainly not the problem. I think, and I mentioned it earlier, I think just the Magic, why they haven't done as well defensively is just they're out of position on a lot of different plays. That was very, very evident on Tuesday against the Hawks on NBC, that there's just so many times they're out of position and fouling while defending. That's another emphasis that Coach Mosley wants is defending without fouling. And so all of that was to say that there's a lot of issues going on in defense that Paolo is it's not necessarily on him. And then I think this year you look at his shooting numbers and they're down from 3-point range, and he wasn't necessarily the most efficient shooter to begin with. But I think what he's done really well, and it kind of showed on this last 5-game road trip, is that his assist numbers are down overall in the year. But I think when you look at the last few games, his numbers are up. He's knowing where guys are going to be when he drives in. Obviously, teams know that he's their driving force. He can always get downhill, get to the line when the offense stalls out. It just seems like he's in a good spot of knowing where people are going to be, where his outlets are, where he needs to go with the ball. And I think that's shown some. I think the shooting numbers, there's been a lot of critique about it. Nationally, I've seen, and rightfully so. He's not the efficient guy that you want as your top guy, and he's without question their top guy right now. And certainly you'd like to see that improve, but I think Paolo is developing into a firm number one perennial all-star in the NBA.
A big part of this team's success last year was the emergence of Jalen Suggs as a true, legit starting point guard. Now, obviously, Suggs got hurt. He's been dealing with injuries kind of for his whole career for the most part in the NBA. It's still kind of, I understand he's back now, but he's not doesn't seem like he's fully healthy. What are we seeing as far as Jalen Suggs' health and kind of how it's impacted his play so far?
Yeah, I think he's definitely been limited. When you look at it, he's not playing in back-to-backs. He didn't play in the preseason. He was limited throughout training camp. A lot of us were a little surprised that he was available to play to start the season, just because he didn't have any sort of in-game ramp-up in the preseason. And, it's the preseason and all of those things. But I think they would have liked to have seen him play at least at some point. But with that being said, he's playing about 20 minutes a game, not playing in back-to-backs. And so I think when you're getting a guy who can play 30, 35 minutes a night when he's healthy, you lose that. You lose a lot of his contributions. And we're seeing his contributions when he is out on the court. He's playing in 4 to 5 minute bursts, and sometimes even shorter. His first game, opening night against the Heat, he picked up 2 fouls in about 63 seconds. That I think everyone was kind of like, all right, he's a little too jacked up to be out there playing right now. And so when he isn't getting in foul trouble, which I don't remember another time quite as bad as that so far, but he's playing in those 4 to 5 minute bursts, and I think Coach Moses is trying to figure out the best times to play him if he knows he's only going to get him in those short bursts. But obviously the team is gonna slowly ramp him up. From what I understand, the knee injury that he had was a little more intricate, I guess, or kind of rare, and as far as at least basketball players. And I don't know what the exact ligament was off the top of my head, but I think they're being very, very cautious with him right now. And at some point we'll start to see him ramp up, and it'll be curious to see how they handle back-to-backs like later in the season. But I think for now they're just happy to have him on the court for 20 minutes if it's just that.
This is not on the rundown, but I'm just going to go for it. First take mode here for a second. So the Boston Celtics, prior to winning a title, had some up and down seasons with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. There was a lot of talk about.
I know where you're going.
You know exactly where I'm going. There was a lot of talk about, is this pair sustainable in the long term? Is the play style redundant? Are they going to be able to, stick this thing out together and actually win a title, or do we need to break up the Jays? This is something that happened over and over and over again prior to Brad Stevens saying, no, we don't, trading a bunch of stuff for Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, bringing Al Horford back in the fold, and them actually winning a title together. So I guess I'm curious. First off, the chatter is already starting around Paolo and Franz, and it's only going to get worse the longer that they don't show that they are a team with legitimate championship expectations. What's the pulse check on, are Paolo and Franz destined to do this together? And if they're not, what is the I won't say if they're not, but I guess I'm curious, what is the whole, like, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, let's get these guys to a title? Do you see that as a possibility in the near future? Break this situation however you want. I didn't phrase that question well, but
yeah, no, I got you. I think the Magic absolutely plan to build around those two guys, and I think you can definitely do it. I think that those two guys are Franz is starting his rookie max deal, I believe, this season. Paolo will be next season. So obviously the expectations are going to rise significantly, and especially considering where the Magic want to be in their pursuit of that title. But I definitely think that those two guys feed well off each other. They're good friends. They have a good relationship on and off the court. They sort of have this like innate ability that the top duos do, that Jason and Jalen had, that, all of these guys have had, Steph and Clay, and, all of these guys, these pairings that, if you're on, I'm not, I'll let you go. If I got it and you don't, then I'll go, or if I know that you got it, I'll just keep feeding you. Those two, like, they do seem to have a great understanding of how they want to play with each other. And I think that they've shown that they can do that. I think that, obviously we're only 8 games into the year for the Magic. And so there's a lot of room for them to grow. But I think when you start getting when they start getting into being a tax team and paying all of these monstrous contracts that they're going to have to pay, Franz, Paolo, Jalen Suggs, and Desmond Baines up there. He's locked in for, I believe, the next 3-4 seasons. They're going to have some luxury bills to pay, and the Magic, historically, they haven't had to pay that in a long time since Dwight Howard was on the team, I believe. And obviously, this is about the best they've been since that era when Dwight Howard was on the team. He left in 2012. So, a couple of years of the Magic kind of just being this second-round team is not going to cut it. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the front office, on Jamal Mosley, on everyone alike. But I think that where the Magic want to go and where they believe they can go starts and ends with Paolo and Franz, and I think that they can do that.
They should not break them up. The Celtics are a great example as to why. And to me, the only thing that they need to do is either figure out how to play fast, which I don't think is the smart idea, but I could see how they could land in a good place there if they do, or they could just play how they played last season, slow it down. Bane is a perfect addition for that. They have shooting. They could add more shooting either at the trade deadline for a big man, a defensive-minded big man who can shoot. That's not going to be cheap, obviously. That might be like a better offseason acquisition. But they don't have to be a title team this season. They just need to hone what they were doing good already, in my opinion, and take the new additions and work them into that. And maybe that takes them someplace else, but I don't think they should play like the rest of the league and just play super fast.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, if we could really ask Jamal Mosley, like, they're sixth in pace last year. They were last. Like, at one point, do they kind of scrap this playing fast style to maybe slow it down a little bit, knowing what they did, what they can do, what they did last year? And so, I think 2 years ago when they went 7 games in the first round with the Cavaliers was like, oh, all right. Was a positive experience for them. Last year, obviously, they get the Celtics in the first round, and we know how that goes. But there were, I think, Franz, Paolo, and Jalen played 6 games together. There were so many injuries, so they kind of had a built-in excuse a little bit. But there's not going to be, they can't have another first-round exit this year, considering the additions they made. And the way Paolo and Franz have been playing, like, they have to go at least second round, probably even further. And obviously that's a long ways out. And if there's like anything crazy that happens before then, as in like they don't make the playoffs, then there will be some serious conversations going on about the future of the team. But I think that the next couple of weeks will be interesting to see how they kind of play it, how they want to play. If they realize, like, maybe we shouldn't play this fast. It's a great idea in theory, but maybe we shouldn't. And so I think the next few games, next few weeks will be, we'll learn a lot about the Magic. I mean, we'll learn a lot about every team over the next couple of weeks, but the Magic especially.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves and start talking about the Magic advancing, in the playoffs, we got to talk about probably the most important thing for them right now, which is they got to advance in the NBA Cup, and standing in their way are the Boston Celtics tomorrow night. So we're going to wrap things up here. Going to go around the horn. Where are we? First off, let's start with this game. Who's winning this game tomorrow and why? Cody, we'll go to you first.
All right. I was just pulling up the injury report, see who we had. I think the Magic are good. But I'm going with Magic. Famous last words. But I think the Magic will get back on track after their road trip, after the embarrassment on Tuesday night, and after a good day of practice today. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to blow the doors off, or I'm not sure what the line is yet. But I think the Magic will take it and be 1-0 to start the NBA Cup.
For what it's worth, it seems like the rosters will be relatively healthy outside of Moritz Wagner and Jason Tatum and Xavier Tillman, respectively. Daniel, what do you think? How's this thing going to go down tomorrow?
Yeah, I was looking more at like the mini series. I just think they're going to split it no matter what. I don't know who's going to win what game exactly, but I think it's just going to be split. The Celtics historically have not played well in Orlando recently. And I mean, Paolo torched them last season when they had a much better defense. I think that could be a pretty big issue in at least one of these games. Franz Wagner's been pretty good against them as well. I know they won't have Mo, who's been pretty good against the Celtics historically as well. But I just see somehow this getting split. I think the Celtics are good enough to beat them at least once, but I don't think they could sweep them. The Magic are more talented and they're hungry too. Like they have a lot to play for because the East isn't that good and it's wide open and they can definitely improve. So I think somehow this goes 1-1.
Dr. Quinn, what do you think about tomorrow's game?
I'm actually going to go with the whole big picture of the home and home series. I think that the Celtics are going to blow the doors off of them in the first game because the Magic are going to keep trying to play fast. And it's going to be so ugly that is when they're going to decide. Because it's not the old Celtics, right? So they're going to feel kind of, that's going to be the night. They say, all right, screw this crap. And then the tables will turn.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's still hard for me to get over the front court stuff. Orlando is huge. They like Houston, share that in common. Their defense has not been good, and Jaylen Brown has been carving up bad defenses this year. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle. But if it's going to come down late to hustle plays and rebounding, it's going to – current track record would indicate that Boston is not all that well equipped to win those games. I'm not gonna make a prediction though. I'm just gonna see how it plays out. Boo.
I will say I like Daniel's 1-1. I do think they'll split the two. I also looked the Magic are 3.5 point favorites. However, I think if I have this right, they've been favored every game this season, maybe except one. And obviously we see how the record has been so far. And also what works in the Celtics' favor is that since Orlando is such like a transient town where no one's really from here, except me, of course, but there's always a good split of Celtics fans at every Celtics game here in Orlando, which tends to always favor the Celtics. Though that being said, they have played each other pretty well down here one way or the other. So those are my yeah.
I did have some really good Cuban food the last time I was in Orlando, for what it's worth. So it may be transient, but the Cuban stuff is pretty tasty. So let's think about kind of big picture here. Obviously, the Magic had high expectations, and the Celtics had relatively tempered expectations heading into this season. It's been a kind of wonky, weird start for both of them. Where are we going to wind up, Cody, in your estimation? Do you think Orlando's going to right the ship and kind of pull back up in the standings and wind up as one of those top 4 seeds, or is it going to be a little more of a slog?
I think so. I think they're going to figure it out. They've played well. Jamal Mosley since he's been here, has been a guy who's got the most out of his teams. There has been some slow starts mixed in there. I know a lot of people have been pointing back, not necessarily talking about the Magic, but I think a lot of people have been pointing back to how the Pacers started last year, and obviously we know how they finished, but I still see them getting home court in the first round. I think that they'll figure it out and get there, and from there we'll just see how it goes.
And Daniel and Justin, I'll go to each of you for Boston. It's been up and down. It's been a weird season. There have been some big wins, some big losses, and everything in between. How are we feeling, pulse check, about where this team is going to wind up towards the end of the year? I'll go to you first, Justin.
I mean, going back to the beginning of the pod when I said that this week was a microcosm of what I expect for the whole season, 50-50 record, right? I mean, they're going to come out of this season, I think, very close to 500. I don't think that will necessarily set them up for a deep postseason run. I think that maybe we'll see a little Jason Tatum at the end of the season, just getting his feet wet, but not with any intention of any kind of like, let's reconfigure the team at the trade deadline kind of a situation. And I'm just going to say that for the Magic, I do think they're going to be right around where Cody says they are, but I think they might end up at a 5 seed instead of a 4 seed. And I don't see them doing much better than a 4 seed.
Daniel, what about your thoughts on long-term projections for, both of these teams?
Yeah, it's like Justin said about the Celtics. And like we said before the season started, this is like a pretty 500 team. We wanted to see how they would do in this tougher part of their schedule. And what are they, 4-5? Like they've pretty much stayed 500, just below. Maybe look at backup, but nothing that out of the ordinary from what we expected. I think they'll probably still maybe sneak in the play-in, maybe get an 8th seed somehow. Like a 500 record is good enough to be out of the play-in and a legit seed in this current Eastern Conference. But I think the Magic will bounce back. I like them as a top 4 seed. I don't think they'll necessarily win the East, given that the Knicks and Cavs are still there, and I think they're a little more experienced. But like I said, the East is wide open, and the Magic have talent. The Bane needs to get more involved. He needs to get more at home, I guess. But I think he will, and I like Jamal Mosley as a coach. I kind of believe in him. So, yeah, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. Obviously, right now, the Chicago Bulls, clearly the winners of the Nikola Vucevic trade, standing atop the Eastern Conference standings. Absolute juggernaut. Have to think that, they're going to be in play. The Detroit Pistons at 6-2, right behind them on their heels. The East is all over the place right now. I think there's a few teams in there that we did not expect to be as good as they are, that are having nice starts to the season, but it's a really long season, folks. It has to be said. We're about 8 games in, 9 games in at most for a bunch of teams. We got 70-something more to go. So we'll have to see. We're going to wrap things up, though. Cody, where can we find your work?
You can find me on the Rookie Wire, and I am at Cody Taylor NBA on the platform formerly known as Twitter, and the other one, Blue Sky. I swear I never get it. Yeah, I'm all over there too. So you can find me there and writing about your favorite rookies, but not Hugo yet. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe someday.
We'll get there.
Daniel, where can we find your work?
Yeah, you can find me at Celtics Wire or Clutch Points, or just Google my name. It'll come up. And at Daniel D1214 on Twitter. And I believe Daniel Don NBA on Blue Sky, but I'm going to be on Twitter more, at least for now, until it shuts down.
Dr. Quinn, where can we find your stuff?
You cannot find it on the site formerly known as Twitter because that site sucks. It's terrible. And I admire y'all. No, I don't admire y'all, but I feel bad for y'all who put up with it because so many people are still on there who should not be on there. But anyway.
We're kind of trapped there.
Yeah, it just happens. I get it. You can find some of my work on Rookie Wire at this time of year for the aforementioned reasons, Mexico stuff, all that good stuff. And, of course, the whole Celtics Wire stuff, or you found it because you are hearing it or watching it.
You can find my stuff here. You can follow me on Blue Sky or Instagram if you want. I also play bass for a band called Divine Sweater, and we have some stuff out there if you want to follow that. But yeah, we're going to close things as we always do at Havlicek Stole the Pod with something to remember or something to forget. Cody, for context, this can be something to remember and or forget about basketball, about the Magic, about the Celtics, about what you had for breakfast this morning. You can take it in any direction you want. You can cover any time period you want, whether it's the last hour, today, the week, the month, the year, your entire life. You can go whatever direction you want with this. We'll model for you and then give you the last word. I'll start. Something that I've got to remember is to put the goddamn chickpeas in a bowl of water and put them in the fridge. I've been trying to make falafel for 3 days and I forget to put the chickpeas in the water. What am I doing? Clearly, it's not working. I need to remember to do that, and I'm going to do it after this pod.
I can go next. This is something I already said, but just to keep reinforcing this point, this season is not about wins. I mean, it's always going to be about the wins for the players, right? But it's about growth, and sometimes growth is ugly, and that's just something to forget.
Yeah, and I'm going to do something we briefly mentioned. I think Alex said it. The Bulls' start to the season, I mean, rightfully so. During the preseason, we were kind of crapping on them. And I mean, they made no moves, so I think it was fair to do so. But hey, they're 6-1 now. I mean, still a long season and something could go wrong, but props to them for kind of shocking the world. And also briefly, I'll touch on Drew Holiday because he's been awesome for the Blazers, and Celtics fans will definitely remember him.
Cody, wrap us up. Something to remember,
Yep.
something to forget. What do you got?
And to make my first appearance on the updated podcast memorable, I'm going to give the hottest hot take there is. I say that Reggie Miller is the greatest shooter of all time. That's
Woo!
right. You heard it here first. Reggie Miller
All
may
right.
not even believe it, but I believe it. I want to say it out loud, and here I did. Don't ask.
That's
I'm just
something
going
to
to go out
remember.
there. I don't want to promise anything until it happens, but there may be something coming soon on this podcast related to that.
Oh, you have my attention.
Very interesting.
Stay
Very
tuned,
interesting.
kids.
Stay tuned. Anyway, that concludes another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod. I am your host, Alex Goldberg. With me, as always, Daniel Dunn-Bedian and Dr. Justin Quinn. Cody Taylor can be found on Rookie Wire. We talked about the Magic, we talked about the Celtics, and we will talk to you again very soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
But Havlicek